First thing I want to say is that I, of course, disagree immediately with and it is very important that in Parliament that we convey our sympathy to the people of Haiti, both the figure now, but tragically, probably as high as 200,000 who've lost their lives, the 250,000 people minimum who will have serious injuries, the 1.5 million people who have lost their homes. And indeed it is calculated that there are 2 million people who need assistance of one kind or another, and 3 million who serious assistance, and 3 million who have been affected. Taking this debate at where I believe it should go, I think, in a positive response, may I say immediately that the Irish public listening to us or who are watching our proceedings should be thanked for their generosity, apart from the state aid that has already been committed. And I think that when we turn in a moment to analytical or logistical difficulties that arise, the first thing I have to say is that from my own experience and my own knowledge is that every donation that has been made by an Irish citizen is needed, is being well spent, and is welcome, and is contributing positively to the reputation of Ireland. Such contributions joined with government contributions are how we are seen. The important part then is that while people may say, well, in the case of the tsunami, in the case of Somalia, this happened and that happened, the interesting side of it is that the kind of contributions that were made in Ireland after the examination post-tsunami were the most effective on the ground. Now, that having been said, Haiti is not a blank page. Haiti 2 years ago, more had hurricanes. I calculate that about 10% of what was pledged by major donors to Haiti 2-3 years ago has arrived on the ground. The commitment was of about that order. There was at one stage 400 million committed to, in fact, a post-hurricane reconstruction. Now, there will be many excuses. The civil society, whether the structures were there on the ground or whatever. So it is important, and I want to report positives in relation to this. The reception given to the vital assistance being provided by the American military, the United States military, at this present time is welcome and a great opportunity for, if you like, the view by Haitians of their neighbour, the United States. It is something to be built upon. The degree to which, if you like, how important the construction of what one is doing, what you are doing there, why are you there, what is the purpose behind your aid, is reflected in the difficulty, for example, of finding acceptance for less than 1,000 troops in the Dominican Republic, the immediate neighbour. So it is not a tabula rasa. Haiti comes, in fact, with a certain kind of history. Poverty that was neglected, international commitments not delivered, and a president elected and gone into exile, now living in Cape Town, a military usurpation of democratic choice, and following that, a lacuna which produced serious factions which damaged the civil society. I want to be entirely positive about this and say this then. It is incredibly important to concentrate on the post-disaster reconstruction effort. It is very, very important to be able to build on the new awarenesses that will be there and create something new. In relation, for example, to Aceh, the single biggest capital project coming from the United States, which is of a road infrastructure kind valued at about $240 million, is just now being done. So there, in that case, as well as that, the Irish public need to be told that it is not the case for stopping giving to these organisations, and they can be very well coordinated through DOCAS. And if, in fact, you have had a failure of donations to come, it isn't that has actually gone wrong. It is pledges who have not been delivered by very serious donors very often. My other point about it is I have to say to the media, I would hope that they will, in fact, give time and space to a consideration of the future of Haiti. I was present in Somalia during the Somalian famine, when one could hardly move the amount of cameras that were there in one's way, be it in the refugee camp in Mandera in the north, or where I was, where people were dying at 130 a day in Baidoa. The minute there had been a bogus landing in the middle of the afternoon, allegedly to protect warehouses, the international media flew away. Somalia had deteriorated into being a stateless place. It was taken over by different factions. But all of the time, the structure had been there upon which a future could have been constructed. I refer explicitly to the clan system. But Western thinking wasn't able to take the clan system as a good basis for the reconstruction of the civil society. So it is necessary to see past where we are now and see how, in fact, Haiti can be constructed with internally, relationship with its neighbour, and also so that people will be able to ask. For example, if people read Lara Marlowe's report today about Captain McInerney's views of what he is doing there, about being welcome as something. And indeed, as the President has said in one of his few very rare interviews, when you have a need like theirs, you don't matter who's landing on the grass. I support that. It is desperately needed now to save what lives can be saved. It is desperately needed now in those very early amputations that take place when life is at stake itself, to deliver the medical facilities. And there are important things. Where I do see a regret, however, is that in the time we were discussing reform of the United Nations, and at that time when it was most promising, the idea of a United Nations-led logistics unit was always a wonderful prospect, because it was in the best position of balancing the separate logistical requirements of civil and military responses. Both are needed, but the international acceptance and legitimacy from a United Nations located, led and acknowledged body was one capable of balancing two systems of intelligent logistics and their delivery. Where the strengths of the NGO sector was in fact actually in the assessment on the ground and in the distribution side. Now, I think that it's a pity that that hasn't been, that hasn't come to be. I think that too, what is important in relation to when this is happening now, is that one has to, I notice no one has mentioned it so far, but I remember in Somalia, for example, one of the biggest issues was the issues of tracing. People who have lost close relatives, children, elderly relatives and whatever, will be anxious to find where they are. And there are people like, for example, the International Red Cross. There are different agencies where they're not doing the same thing, who have different expertise in finding out these particular things. I'm very happy with this, the way that the Irish government is responding quickly. I'm happy that it is reporting to us as well about meetings in Europe. I'm less than happy, frankly, at perhaps Baroness Ashton's response, because I think that there is an opportunity of giving leadership. We're not simply adding a European Union component in. I would have liked to see the European Union emphasis allying itself to the United Nations hegemony in relation to a response. And I think, in fairness to people I've often criticised, the US administration would have welcomed that. It would have enabled them to get on with what they are good at. It's also important to say this. This is the largest blow a United Nations body has taken, the loss of its personnel on the ground, and I associate myself with the sympathy that has already been expressed. But I have to say, it would be dishonest of me if I didn't say that the 7,000 UN presence that is there before the earthquake, right up to the point at which the hurricane happened, in many cases, were perceived by many as people who were not so much preparing for a new Haiti or moving on towards a reconciliation of sort, but as simply people who were keeping people quiet, all the different political opinions being suppressed. So what I think in that is therefore is that here there are things, there are new skills. There are skills not only in relation to logistics, but skills in relation to how you reconstruct, taking history into account and creating models into the future. There's a real role for applied political science in relation to this. And I do think that there is an opportunity of creating new balances between neighbours. The Dominican Republic, its special relationship to the Bush regime, now different. The Obama regime, which is trying to create a new image for the United States, its relationship to the international thing. But one thing I am certain of is that the positive actions of Irish donors, Irish insurers, and particularly the Irish government in what it is doing have been of immense value to the reputation of our country.